All right. Everything's good on my end.
Things are going well on my end, too.
God.
Hi, and welcome to Backstage Gaming. I'm Swamp Daddy.
Ooh.
I live on a corner of the bayou and the swamplands.
Oh, Swamp Daddy.
Come on over, I'll slaughter an Anuki beast and tell you your fortune.
Have I left Earth? Am I on Dagobah right now?
I think, well, I certainly just got rid of all the vocal warm-ups I just did, so that's fine. Oh, Lord. Swamp Daddy's never coming out again.
That's probably for the best.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Backstage Gaming, Dramatics takes on your favorite games. I'm Chris.
I'm Dylan.
And we're here to talk about games and theater and acting and all of these things that we pretend to be knowledgeable about sometimes. This week's going to be a little bit more chill. Last week, when we did our big deep dive into Iconoclast, we got very nitty-gritty. We spent a lot of time being... I think it would be perhaps overly generous to us to say that we were meticulous, but you know what I mean.
We did some cold takes.
Yeah. So we're gonna take it a little more easy this week. We've got a topic that we're just gonna kind of chill and talk about for a little while, and hopefully that'll be entertaining enough for y'all. Meanwhile, the turkey boy is no more. I have shed the turkey boy, and now I am a Christmas tree festooned with latkes.
Really?
That is.
Are they making you, wear holiday get-up?
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying what I feel like in my soul.
Okay, just had to make sure.
We have... So this is still wild to me, and this is probably not wild to anyone else, but as someone who grew up in a very rural area where there were tree farms everywhere, there were 3 or 4 tree farms within an easy drive of the town I grew up in Michigan. And now I live in Chicago where I don't think they have trees.
Nope, I have not seen a single goddamn tree.
Yeah, no. Vegetation is a thing of the past, not the shiny chrome utopia that they have crafted here on the coast of Lake Michigan. So you have to get your Christmas tree from a grocery store, like the one I work at. And people don't seem to understand how trees work.
Okay, what does that mean?
There was a guy yesterday who came in and he wanted to buy a Christmas tree, and he wanted to buy a Christmas tree stand to go with it, which is all perfectly reasonable. But then he threw a fit because the tree stand was dirty. A note for this, they live outside where the trees are.
Oh my god.
So he demanded that we hose it off for him.
Just wash it, put that shit in the dishwasher. It's not that hard.
I'm with you, but here we are. And then because it was busy, it was a Sunday during our peak hours, and he didn't get his tree with the efficiency and speed that he has come to expect, given his position in the world as a mediocre white man.
Sorry.
I'm glad that appealed to you. He demanded a refund, which my store manager at this point was just I want you out of my store, so sure, have a $10 refund, you monster.
Oh my god.
And then he came back later being they cut the bottom of the tree crooked and it won't stand up straight. For any of you who have never put up a Christmas tree in one of those Christmas tree stands, yes, it is helpful if the bottom of the tree is perfectly flat, but it is also hard to get the bottom of a Christmas tree perfectly flat, which is why they have those bolt things that come in on the side.
Yeah,
you hold it upright.
You
hold it upright, tighten it up, and then it doesn't matter if it's flat on the bottom; it'll stand up just fine.
You know what? If you have this many complaints about a dirty Christmas tree stand and a crooked Christmas tree, just get an artificial Christmas tree.
At this point, you're the Grinch.
Yeah.
This guy might just be the Grinch. But between that and it's also as of recording this, I think yesterday was the first day of Hanukkah, so we're probably going to be releasing after the entirety of Hanukkah is done.
Oh, wow.
But we have a holiday catering service that we offer where if you've got 20 million relatives coming in for any of the various holidays this time of year, we can do cooking for you. You come pick it up. It's already cooked. You just have to reheat it, which is great. But there are several people at my store who aren't as up to speed with what's cool vis-a-vis being Jewish.
Oh boy.
Like nothing
Can
bad
I interject
happened.
real quick?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is it bad that, like, the second you mentioned Hanukkah, the first thing my mind went to was that one song from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
Good. Great show. Go watch Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, everybody, after you've listened to our show.
I just wanted to give that plug. Anyway, continue.
I appreciate it. But so one of my coworkers was at our like holiday order table, and a customer came in and wanted to know what kind of Hanukkah dishes we had on the menu, which we don't have like a huge selection of specifically kosher things, but we've got, brisket that's wine braised, and we have, the traditional latkes and applesauce, and like there's stuff on the menu that is geared specifically towards setting a Hanukkah table.
Yeah, that stuff sounds awesome.
And the first thing that my coworker suggests when he's asked if we have any Hanukkah dishes is a spiral sliced ham.
Okay, hold on. This person clearly doesn't know a lot about the Jewish faith.
Like, I don't want to dunk on this dude because it wasn't malicious, but like, how do you get to be of age to work growing up in America and not, like, at least pick up through osmosis that, like, maybe don't recommend pig in this context?
I don't know what the Jewish population density is in Chicago, but I imagine...
In Evanston, it's pretty high. Judging by the spikes in sales we get around like holidays like Hanukkah and Rosh Hashanah, like it's not small.
Then I don't know what to say to this man.
Yeah, like I don't want to put my coworker on blast, but like that was hilarious to me. Luckily, like the customer took it in stride and was cool with it, but it was all I could do not to laugh out loud. But yeah, they've started playing the Christmas music, and it's whittling away at my will to live. But I'll make it.
I can't remember if when I worked at Furious Spoon. I don't know if whatever, it's fine. When I worked at Furious Spoon, I can't remember if we ever heard like Christmas Time in Hollis, Queens, like that Run DMC.
Yes. The Tupac Christmas album.
Well, I mean, like, because I think that's the only like Christmas hip hop song.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Like, I mean, like, it's kind of got a monopoly in that area. So
I mean, the Jay-Z Linkin Park collab always puts me in the holiday spirit.
Well, it has to. It does that for someone, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else new in Cleveland with you, buddy?
Nothing like major. It's funny that we're choosing this topic today because I rolled a new D&D character yesterday. And did a little bit of a campaign I'm doing with some friends back home.
Nice.
And
Thank you for pulling the ripcord on my segue. We're talking this week about tabletop games because hey, it's early enough still we can broaden our portfolio. We don't just like video games, we like all kinds of games because we're big nerds.
But I thought this was a theater podcast.
We're gonna talk about we are many things. We are mercurial
experimental.
As the sea.
We are multi-curious.
Yes, we are regular Renaissance men of being geeks.
We're ready to try a little bit of everything.
Yeah, but anyway, we are both very big tabletop gamers. We both play in multiple D&D games together. If I ever get off my ass and successfully schedule the one that I'm DMing ever again.
Yeah, we really need to finish the Phantom Menace, Chris.
Yeah, shut up. And we play together in a campaign DM'd by another one of our friends, and I used to and am now getting back into playing a lot of things like Magic the Gathering. I don't know, board games and stuff like that is fun. And we're going to talk a little bit about elements of those that appeal to our sensibilities as actors. And I don't know, just sort of, like I said, this is going to be a little bit more of a chill episode. I don't have like a thesis statement going into this one.
All of our material was in the Iconoclast one. It's all downhill from here.
Don't say that.
Don't take me seriously.
We just have to get back on our feet. Um,
Oh, Snagglepuss, we have a guest star? You didn't tell me, Chris.
Heavens to Murgatroyd, I just rolled a nat 20!
We already did this joke, I think.
Oh,
God.
Snagglepuss will be a recurring character. Anyway,
Like I said, it's all downhill from here.
So, yeah, for those of you who don't know about tabletop gaming outside of like what you've seen on TV and stuff, you've probably heard of things like Dungeons and Dragons, which is kind of the granddaddy at this point. But tabletop games have been around for a long time. The first ever, at least as far as I have found, game that was like intended to be at least somewhat narrative was actually, it's called Little Wars, and it was published in 1913 by H.G. Wells, famed author of The Time Machine and The Invisible Man, like, you know, a bunch of very early sci-fi
All very good
novels.
stories.
He actually created like the first role-playing game. It was much more like a like tactics-based game, but it sort of paved the groundwork for what came to be known as like tabletop gaming outside of the realm of like established games like chess and Go and Stratego and that kind of stuff.
That's really interesting, because you think it would be like more of like a writing game type thing, or maybe I'm just crazy, but
yeah, but I
I
there's
dig
a part
it.
of me that's like, I wonder if H.G. Wells, like, if he knew that, like, this thing he did turned into, like, this huge world of people making stories together. I wonder how he would feel about that. I like to think he'd be into that.
Yeah, I would say so.
But tabletop gaming has grown into being, like, a pretty huge world of entertainment. There's the big boys like Dungeons and Dragons and its spin-off Pathfinder, and then its subsequent spin-off Starfinder, which are very like, you create a character and you and your friends live through a story as told by a person playing as like the game master. There are also games like Betrayal at the House on the Hill, which have role-playing elements but are much more like, you sit down and play a session of this game. There's been expansions into like card games and all kinds of different stuff. But what I kind of want to talk about this week, and what I think will be interesting for us, is just sort of talking about like how games like this create stories. Because the act of playing in one of these games is, you know, you're taking on a role. You're kind of...
It's literally modern communal storytelling.
Yeah, it's acting-ish, it's improv-ish, it's like devising-ish. There's a lot of things that go into making theater that also have a place in playing games like this, and I just thought that was kind of an interesting parallel that would make for a nice, chill talking podcast. I'm going to take a sip of water now because my mouth is not working.
I want to say real quick that players annoy the dungeon master in very much the same way that actors probably annoy directors and stage managers. I feel like that's a fair statement to say.
Probably. I think the higher stakes of, like, we're putting on a professional production here probably helped to dissuade quite as many rampant dick jokes as at what end up in your typical session of D&D. But, you know, I've also been in shows where that was not the case.
I was about to say, like, you've worked with me.
I've worked with you. I've also worked in what was essentially a drag company. So, you know.
Yeah. I think they win.
It's a lot. But
oh, that reminds me. I'm sorry. I know we're getting
me.
off topic again,
Hit
but so VRV now has Boomerang. This isn't a paid advertising or anything, guys. But yeah, so I now have access
sponsored content.
I now have access to a bunch of old Boomerang shows, and we were watching Scooby-Doo, and my dad turns to me and says, "How is Chris, by the way?"
Ready? Are you ruined?
So plainly making a connection to said show you did with the
that
drag
was
company.
the voice that got me my first ever professional theater job.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's fun. I did a lot of humping on stage for that show. But for a starting point for this episode of discussion, let's just take the game that arguably started the whole modern trend Dungeons and Dragons, one of my favorite games to play. D&D, the basic rules, or not rules so much as like how it typically works for anyone who has not played it. You have one person. They're the Dungeon Master or Game Master. Game Master sounds less kinky and applies to more games, so we're going to call it Game Master for this podcast. They come up with a story, or maybe they buy a book that has a pre-written story from Wizards of the Coast in it, and they're like, all right, let's play through this story. And they come up with sort of the series of events. Typically, you'll have like a loose structure of like, I want to tell this kind of story or have this kind of experience, and then you have a group of players who all come up with like, I want to play a halfling trickster thief. Donovan, what are you gonna be playing?
I'll be I think I'll be a rogue. Who's
we've got
literally just James from Pokemon.
We've got a thief and a rogue, so our party will die in the first combat encounter.
I meant to say Bard, and I know that we'll still die, but like, come on, humor me. I just want to be James for like.
I'm here to help you live this dream.
Wonderful.
So yeah, a bunch of people sit around a table. They've got the characters they want to be playing as. The Game Master introduces encounters. Let's call them scenes because we're actors here. And the group has to find ways through these encounters. Sometimes it's combat, sometimes it's social interactions, sometimes it's puzzles and traps. And through all of this working together, you end up creating a story together. And some people are much more into it for the story. Some people prefer just like, I want to hack and slash through a dungeon and fight monsters and find loot and repeat. And one of the cool things about games like this, there's no wrong way to play them. If you like it and you're having fun and the rest of your group's having fun, then, hey, have fun. That's what it's all about.
Unless your uppity players aren't doing what you want them to do.
Get back on the railroad, slobs. These tracks ain't gonna lay themselves.
If any of my game masters are listening, you guys are all wonderful, and
yeah, we're very sorry.
Can't wait for Dakota to message me next week.
But one of the things that I think is so interesting is this: there are the stories that happen because the DM plans for them, or the game master plans for them. There are the stories that it's like, I'm going to play the Dragon Heist adventure that Wizard recently published, which, has a pretty set structure as far as the events that are going to unfold and the set pieces that are going to happen. But a lot of the interstitial stuff, a lot of the stuff that happens like in the course of actual play, is this really interesting mix of like acting and improv. Like, playing in a game like this isn't pure improv. Because you can't just say yes to everything. Like, that's not how it works. There are rules, and like,
I mean, you can, but you'd be a very difficult player.
Be a very difficult player. You'd also be, not the greatest dungeon master. Like, when I game master games, I try to find ways to say yes to everything that my players have. Like, I try to, if someone has an idea and there is a way that I can like, okay, I can make that be fruitful toward solving whatever problem you're going for, I will do that because, running into dead ends all the time isn't fun. But there's also things where, like, if someone's like, whoa, I'm going to use my Step of the Wind feature as a monk to double my jump distance and then jump to the moon. Like,
okay, yeah, that's fair.
Like, there are rules and there are points where the game is instructing you to say, like, no, we're shooting for some semblance of, like, if not realism, at least verisimilitude.
All right, edit this out real quick, but like,
okay.
How cool would it be if it was a Gurren Lagann campaign where like, oh wait, no, there is a game like that where I guess we can keep this in because there's what's the game where like after every action you do, the actions have to get more and more ridiculous?
I don't know.
You were talking about that one, or I mean, isn't that what Johnny Clockwork's from?
Oh yes. Okay, let's transition a little bit.
Sorry, I know I'm
fine.
derailing it, but
I'm into it. D&D is sort of the granddaddy and is what people who care more about games than you should, read me, would refer to as having a very crunchy rule system. Like, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of
a lot of math.
Do things within the parameters. Not to say you don't have a lot of freedom to like try things out, But because there are mechanics for so much that you can do, typically, if you have that mechanic, you can do it, and if you don't, like, that's the opportunity cost that you paid with the choices you made about your character.
A huge appeal of Dungeons & Dragons is the feeling of progression, and the game is designed to kind of reflect that numerically, where you're not only progressing the story and you're not only progressing your character, but you're, like, the rules of the game are set as such that as you keep playing the game, numerically, you become more and more valuable, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. But then there are systems that have started to crop up that are much, compared to the crunchiness of something like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, are much smoother mechanically. They have a lot less, rules and numbers and are much more focused on allowing for narrative. There's one that Dylan and I played with some friends in college called Spirit of the Century. Which is based on a system called Fate, I believe. Yes, it's a Fate system game.
Yes.
And the premise of this game, the Fate system is so cool. When you create your character, there's no classes, there's no levels, really. You give your character... I mean, there are levels, but differently than Dungeons & Dragons. You come up with sort of like the fantasy of the character you want to play as.
Yeah.
The character I rolled for this campaign, it's intended... Spirit of the Century in particular is a system that's intended for very, like, pulp adventure style, like, modern swashbuckling kind of storytelling. And I created a character named Johnny Clockwork, who was an art thief who had a job go bad, lost an arm and a leg, and had them replaced with, like, a cogwork simulacrum arm and leg. He was a ton of fun. But then once you have your fantasy of your character, you come up with different... I can't remember what they're called in the language of the game, but I'm going to call them attributes.
Okay.
And so you come up yourself with, like, okay, what is, like, a pithy thing about my character? And so for Johnny Clockwork, I had one that I called, like, how do you work this thing? And then in the course of play, when it's your turn, you can use one of your attributes and you, like, mark it as used to do something that fits in the ballpark of what you were intending with that. So how do you use this thing? I would use to, like, introduce some new thing that my arm or leg could do functionally that I hadn't established before. So, like, I would use it to, like, by the way, my hand's a grappling hook. I'm Bionic Commando now. But then the flip side is the Game Master can then, once you've used it, they can, like, give it back to you, but in doing so, use it against you. So, like, I was swinging and, like, I had been grappling hooking for several rounds, and then the Game Master was like, okay, I'm going to give you how do you work this thing back, and the grappling hook fails, and now you're falling through the air. What do you do? So it's much more of, like, a give and take to create elements of storytelling there. What was your character for that, Dylan? I can't remember.
So I was actually going to mention this, but
Yeah.
you were already explaining the game. I don't think I actually played that game with you. I was probably busy with something else because we were in college.
Yeah.
So I didn't play that one.
What was the Somewhere Out of the Blue?
That's what
game
I was
that
trying
y'all
to
played?
remember.
Yes.
I can't remember what the name of the game was.
It's
This
the one
is-
with the Jenga blocks, right?
Yes, it is.
Dread.
This is really great for a podcast. I'll have to talk to the people we played with what the name was, but
I think it was called Dread.
it was called Dread. And it was this horror-themed... it was this horror-themed game where essentially every time you wanted to do an action, you would have to pull a Jenga block from a Jenga tower, and when it toppled, that character died, and then it would reset, and ideally it was supposed to be this kind of story where, you know how in horror movies, slasher movies in particular, you get down to the lone survivor. People keep getting killed until there's only one person left. So that's ideally what we were supposed to have. But in our campaign, we were really good at Jenga, I guess. So we were in, like, an Aliens type of situation, like Xenomorphs, specifically Dead Space, that kind of thing. And none of us died for that campaign, and it was great.
So
but
is that game intended for, like, a one-session thing?
It is, yeah.
Cool. I'm into that.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to have more than one session, but we grew attached to the characters, and a story was created.
Why did you guys call that Someday Out of the Blue?
Because the stars of the show were me and our friend Dakota, and we both loved The Road to El Dorado, and because we were the stars of that show, we started singing Someday Out of the Blue after the campaign was over, because that is our song.
Okay, I was wondering if I knew it had to be either that or like Colton, our friend who was running this campaign, like pulling like naming it that because he was making it like a Mesoamerican themed slasher flick or something.
No, not in this case. But the cool thing about Dread was that, like the game you were talking about, our character work was more like about like our character flaws and given circumstances, to use the term from last week.
Yeah.
Where,
Hey, Dylan. Define it for me. Tell me what that means.
So,
no, I
given
love it when you talk theater.
Are you Harley Quinn?
Don't you want to rev up your Harley, Mr. J?
Vroom, vroom.
Mr. D?
Oh, no. It got worse.
It got far worse.
Anyway, given circumstances are basically everything in a character's life that is relevant to the action of a play or movie or any form of story. So, for me, my given circumstances were I believe I had like a wife and daughter back home, and I had like some sort of crippling drug addiction to what we called Space Jam, because of course we called it Space Jam. It was like a hallucinogenic.
I gotta slam. Come on, let me slam.
It was a preserved hallucinogenic fruit that
I'm guessing it was just the spice, right?
It was the spice, yeah. And so, when I was playing, I would have to factor that in as I was making decisions, like, would now be the time where I would have to pull a block and be like, I gotta have the Space Jam. It's your chance. Get your dance at the Space Jam.
This is one of the things that I love about this kind of game is, like, again, there are groups out there playing games like D&D and Pathfinder who are very much like, I want to play a hardened adventurer, and I want to, like, I'm playing this like a tactical game, and I want to make all of the best choices tactically with my character. And that's cool. If that's how you like to play these games, then, like, rad. I'm glad you're out there having fun.
Exactly.
I love playing games like this where I am very flawed. In the game that I am currently playing with Dylan being DM by the same friend Dakota, I am playing a monk rogue who is very good in combat, but also has a, like, woefully terrible charisma score. And I have had a lot of fun playing into how bad this guy is in social encounters, frequently to the detriment of the party. And
I
like,
wouldn't say it's that frequent.
Not like every time, but, like, there are groups where that would not be cool. There are groups playing where, like, that would not be, like, the environment and the kind of game that we're looking to play. That is not this group of people, and this is the kind of game that I am very glad I have friends that like playing, because I think it's fun to, like, find the flaws with your characters and, like, be able to sort of, you kind of get to play the role of actor and writer all in one and, like, make your own arc as you're figuring out, like, what kind of tactics you like to take as a character in role-playing situations. And, like, I don't know. I think it's really cool. There's another system I want to talk about because I have not gotten to play a game in it yet, but I have, like, read all the rules because I think it's super awesome. There's a whole family of games that use a system called Powered by the Apocalypse. They're fairly smooth. All of the decisions are based on a roll of, like, you roll 2 6-sided dice, and it's like, if you got a 6 or less, it's a failure. If you get, like, a 7 to 9, I think it is, it's a mixed success. And if you get 10 or higher, it's like you did it how you wanted to do it.
Okay. I really like that system.
It's very clean, and then, like, you have, like, different things that you can roll for. So, like, if you're fighting, you're gonna roll a kick some ass roll. And if you're gonna, there's use magic, there's read a bad situation, there's investigate a mystery, there's all these different, like, categories that kind of cover all of the different things you could be doing, but it's always just you roll 2d6, you add or subtract whatever your relevant thing is, and you see where you fall. But what I love about it is a game in which whenever there's like an encounter, there's not a rigid turn order. You just sort of like, it's up to the players to decide what order things are going to happen in and like who's going to go after who. Okay. And the game master does not get turns.
Okay.
Everything the game master does is in reaction to the actions taken by the player characters.
That's really weird, but really cool, and I'm about that.
Yeah, so like if it's a combat encounter, for example, and you roll a kick some ass roll, and you get like a mixed success, and that lets the game master like choose one thing negative to happen to you as a result of you taking this action, that's then like, it's not that the creature gets its own turn where it's going to kick your ass too. You're both going to deal damage to each other, and then the creature's going to get to like do something in response, which is a very cool and like organic and flowing way of handling encounters like that. And it also leads to like very freeform and very like dynamic sort of storytelling.
Yeah.
The other thing I absolutely love about this system, a pretty standard thing across all tabletop RPGs, is the idea of, you level up. As the game goes on, you want to feel like your characters are progressing. You're going to get some systems, it's like an experience point system, very much like a video game RPG. Some systems, it's like once you have a certain number of encounters, you get to add certain things onto your character. In the Powered by the Apocalypse games, you mark experience when something you do fails.
Okay.
You don't get experience points from like winning fights. You
only grow from your failures? Or?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
And it's rad because it turns like a botched roll.
So
yes,
you're
it can
encouraged to take more risks.
Exactly. You're encouraged to take risks. You're encouraged to try things that might not work. And you know that like, as long as it isn't so much of a fuck up that you die, you're going to be able to cash in those failures and get better. And I just like, it's a little thing, but it's a very fun like mechanics as metaphor thing that the game designers did.
Yeah, I love that. That's good storytelling.
Yeah. This system is used in a game called Monster of the Week. That is the system being used in the current iteration of the Adventure Zone podcast done by the McElroy brothers, and is also being used in a podcast, an actual play podcast called Unexplored Places, that is GM'd by a friend of ours from college, who is very cool, and you should go check them out at UnexploredCast on Twitter and listen to what they do, because they do a really fun show.
I still need to listen to it. I'm sorry.
It's very fun.
I believe it.
Yeah, it is possible that one or both of us might be doing some cameo work with them sometime soon.
Yeah, so I should really get on that, honestly.
Yeah, but like also still very much in the works, so like who knows? But yeah, it's a really fun system. It leads to a lot of very cool like storytelling moments and very cool moments of like earned tension. Like what I love about games like this is like, because you as a player are like deeply invested in it, because it's your character, and sometimes these games can last for months or years, like you get a level of tension as someone involved that is like very unique in playing games, and even unique in like, I have had moments playing D&D that were more tense for me than like any movie I've ever watched.
Oh yeah, dude. I like, cause when someone dies on screen, it's like, oh man, it's sad. I really like that character. But like, when a character dies in your party, you're like, oh no, nothing will ever be the same.
See, what was it a couple sessions ago when Gloom got brain dead?
Oh my god. That was okay. So Gloom is the name of Chris's character, and we are in this dungeon, and I don't know the name of the monster. You're gonna have to help me.
Intellect Devourers.
Thank you.
Their brains on feet.
We were in a legit like horror movie scenario,
like Metroid Prime horror lab.
I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to take away from tabletop games today, but yeah, it was very Metroid Prime. And it just jumped out, attacked Gloom, and instantly brain dead.
Yep. Which led to like a frantic chase scene, like me on another party member's back, unconscious, trying to get me to someone who can fix it.
I'm flinging spells at this abomination, being like, "What the hell is that?"
Like God, I love.
He
games
got
like
better.
This. Yeah, I got fixed. There was a kindly old horseman who was able to fix my brain. But like, you get moments that, like, you know, were they happening in real life would be incredible as like film or TV action set pieces, but like you're getting to make them happen, and like the outcome is so uncertain. I also think, just kind of, this came into my head because I was talking about like the Adventure Zone and Unexplored Places. The rise of like tabletop gaming as consumable entertainment is like fascinating.
That's a very interesting topic. I feel like that's worthy of its own.
That's probably worthy of its own episode. I just want to like, because, you know, there's things like, there's Critical Role, which for anyone who doesn't know is like a big D&D stream featuring a whole bunch of like very prolific and very talented voice actors. And there's things like the Adventure Zone, which is another big podcast. It was originally D&D, now it's Monster of the Week. And this has sort of given rise to a whole world of what are called actual play podcasts, meaning it's just, you know, a group of people sitting around and playing a game. And I think, you know, we'll probably come and do like a whole episode on this, because like with a little bit more time to think about it, I could probably come up with something interesting to say.
Right.
But I'm fascinated with it by just like, on the one hand, I think it's super cool because it's, you know, spreading awareness of tabletop gaming as a thing that is out there. And I, you know, I'm never going to gatekeep. I want more people to like the things that I like, because that means more people making the things that I like. So
no, it dilutes the scene or whatever.
No true gamer would ever. No, like.
Why are you Scottish? Okay.
But on the other hand, there is the risk of like, if your only experience of Dungeons and Dragons is watching Critical Role, playing Dungeons and Dragons might be disappointing, because like odds are good you're not going to be playing with like a team of incredible professional actors with really good chemistry. So like, I
mean, and then there's also like the daunting task of learning how to play.
Yeah, like, which again, I think more awareness and like being able to consume it, like being able to listen to, especially thinking about like the Adventure Zone, when they started out, several of them had never played Dungeons and Dragons before. So there was like a learning curve involved with them in making the show, which I think is very cool. And I think it would be really cool to see other podcasts sort of take absolute beginners like that. Because it is daunting, and you kind of need to have, you know, the friend who knows the rules to make a stab at a lot of these games. I actually spent about an hour before we recorded today on Skype with our friend Brennan, because he's getting prepped to DM his first D&D campaign, and he wanted my advice on getting things set up for it, which was very fun.
I can't wait to play that.
It's gonna be really cool. I'm not gonna spoil anything, because he sent me like his outline for what he's doing, but I'm like very, very down and very into it.
I like that this podcast is these two fucks talk about games that you're never gonna get to play.
No, but you can play it.
No, you can play D&D. I'm just talking about, like, specifically, like, this is what we did playing D&D, or...
Yeah, but, like, I think that's what's so cool about it, and that's why, like, I have never met someone who played D&D and didn't like it. I know several people, like my girlfriend, for instance, who did not like it right away, but, like...
And then she just started saying she liked it. No,
yeah, I mean, honestly, she's probably just humoring me. But... there's something about, like, being a part of a storytelling experience that is very interesting and very investing. I feel like there's probably another whole episode on, like, improv in D&D, and there's probably another episode on, like, devised storytelling in D&D.
Well, I actually wanted to bring up, not tabletop game, but it is a role-playing game.
Hit me.
I wanted to touch on murder mysteries a little bit.
Oh, yes.
So
I only ever went to one, and it was during a sad time of my life, so I'm going to let you take driver's seat on this.
Oh, no. All right. Well, I guess it's Dylan's turn to talk about games today. So anyway, murder mysteries are... They're a bit of a... They're kind of a LARPing thing, live-action role-play. And essentially, it's a little hard to explain in its entirety, but what it is essentially is that you are assigned a role, and you are given goals, and you go up, you walk into this simulated event. So, for example, you are in a casino.
Yeah,
and
the one I went to was on a cruise ship, I think.
Okay, yeah, like casino, cruise ship, the reading of someone's will, possibly. Whatever the event is, you are given kind of a sheet of like what your character is, what you want to accomplish by the end of the night.
Your objective.
Yes, and your relationship to some other players who will be playing.
Given circumstances.
Yes, given circumstances, objective, all of that good stuff.
I'm the sexy voice of the theater.
And so, you show up to the party, and, if we're doing our jobs correctly, there will be snacks and drinks, and it'll be like a party, but you're also pretending to be someone else, and you're trying to obtain something. And so the staff at the murder mystery will all be in character, and they will, they will progress the story when it needs to progress.
They sort of guide
intervals.
They guide the events forward.
And so when you essentially, like, say 10-15 minutes into the party, after you've kind of met everyone and you know who's playing who, you get an announcement that there is a dead body, and now now there's going to be an investigation into who killed the person. And, that might be your objective. That might not be your objective.
Maybe you're the murderer.
You might be the murderer. And yeah, so your objective might be to do X, and X other things and get out.
Yeah. Maybe you have nothing to do with the murder. Maybe you're like in the casino because you're planning a heist and now you need to get out before you're implicated. Maybe... Wasn't there one where, like, I remember hearing stories from you guys about, like, somebody who was, like, an art baron?
I think that was Dakota.
Probably.
I think that was... Yeah. That was the first game we played. I think Dakota was an art thief or something. And, he's schmoozing with everyone. He's wooing ladies left and right. And, then at the end of the game, he made all of his goals, made off with a bunch of art, a bunch of money, made off with the heiress of the man who died. Wasn't the murderer.
You can't really win murder mysteries. Dakota won that murder mystery.
Yeah. Dakota's really good at these kinds of games, guys. We should have him on sometime.
But yeah, like, this is another example of, like, it strides an interesting line where it's like, it's not quite improv because there are, like, these boundaries in which you're working. Like, you have an objective.
I would say even in improv, or at least in some forms of improv, you are given, like, these are the things that are your character.
Yeah,
now,
but a lot of those come, there are different schools of improv. But a lot of the time, you get a suggestion of, like, a place or a relationship or something, but then from there, you don't frequently start out with a, like, and this is what you're trying to do, because the whole goal of improv is to see, like, where the scene ends up going as you just riff off of each other. So it's not quite improv, but it's also, there's also no script, so there's a lot more improvisation to it than acting, but you still have that, like, idea of, like, you've got your objective that you're trying to go for. They're very fun. I said, the only one I ever went to, like, I did not have the best time, but that was due to a lot of extraneous circumstances in my life at the time.
Yeah, but I'm really sorry to hear that, buddy. Yeah. We should see if there's any in Chicago, and maybe next time I'm in town.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I would be down.
Organize one.
But I wanted to talk about that really briefly because I think the cool thing about murder mysteries and all of the role-playing games that we have just mentioned is kind of like what Chris said, where we are, there are obvious rules set in place, but those rules are for the purpose of telling a story. But I think the cool thing about these games are it's a story where the teller is also the audience.
Yeah.
And that is a unique thing to these role-playing games.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really have much else to add. Like I said, if nothing else, this has got me thinking about, like, a lot more, like, actual topics in this vein.
Right.
But again, my goal this week, we did a big, hard thinky episode last week. I kind of wanted to decompress. I am also very busy this week with my day job, so I wanted something that wasn't going to be a huge editing hassle.
No, I got you.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining us as we sort of ramble about games that we like and sort of point at theater terms every now and then. Anything else?
I think that's a strong foundation for this podcast.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we go to our thank yous, my friend?
Not really. No. I think this was a simple and clean podcast.
Yeah.
Or episode rather.
Simple and clean. That's a song that I can't. I was gonna make a joke and then it wasn't there.
It was intentional. We said the same thing yesterday, but not yet. Or you know what I mean.
But yeah, thank you everyone for coming and listening. Sorry that this one wasn't more like, here's our story that we're here to tell you. But I hope you had fun nonetheless. Maybe you learned something new. Maybe you learned about a new game that you want to go out and try. Tabletop games are fun and they're social. They're getting friends together and having a good time. And
you
speaking
reminded
of friends,
me to not listen to one but two podcasts.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I've listened to a bit of the Adventure Zone, but not a lot.
Listen to more of it. Also,
yeah.
Check out Unexploredcast because it's really fun. But speaking of friends, thank you, all my friends out there on the internet, my website friends, for listening to yet another episode of the Adventures.
You did not.
Hi, everybody. I'm Griffin McElroy, your dungeon master, your best friend, and your fraud. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Backstage Gaming. This has been a ton of fun. This has been our 7th episode. We've been doing this for almost 2 months, my dude. That's really weird.
Wow, yeah.
More than 2 months if you consider that we started recording before we started releasing. So, what?
I remember seeing a post once where let's do a podcast is the equivalent of let's start a band. And, for what it's worth, I feel like we've lasted longer than
a lot of those experiments.
Yeah.
And we're just going to keep on going. So thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you for sharing. You can find us on Tumblr, Twitter. Well, Tumblr might be dead.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know, I'm gonna do the Tumblr thing, but I saw Verizon stock just plummet because of certain Tumblr-related news that dropped today.
But yeah, you can find us on Tumblr, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, all by searching Backstage Gaming. Let everyone that you know about the show if you think that they'd be into what we were putting out there. And please feel free to tweet about us using the hashtag BSGPod. Help us grow that brand.
Yo, if you like the artwork we have up on our site, you can thank our friend Brendan French. If you like his art, like I just said, you can check out his Squarespace, brendanfrench.squarespace.com. That is BRENNEN-French.squarespace.com.
And thank you, as always, to our friend BioQuery for the use of our theme song, Sound Radio Volume 1 Instrumentality. That and all of his other really cool music can be found at soundcloud.com/BioQuery. That's soundcloud.com/BioQuery. And feel free to visit our website. It's bsgpod.com. We've got our episodes. We've got bios. I'm working on sections for things like supplementary reading with the scenes we did last week for Iconoclast. I'm working on a section for a glossary for
all the weird terms we keep throwing at you.
But yeah, check us out there. You can download our podcast directly from the source. We upload every Monday. I set the upload time for 2:30 in the morning just so it will be there when you wake up, hopefully.
That was kind of you.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else to say, so I'm not going to say anything else except thank you for listening to Backstage Gaming. And we will talk to you again next week.
See ya. Yes, I giggled at my own joke.